It's almost that time, everybody. We are almost there. The wait is almost over. Welcome in to Warchant TV's presentation of the early signing day preview presented by our friends at Walk-On's Sports Bistro, alongside the senior recruiting analyst for Warchant.com, Michael Langston. My name is Tom Lang. And over the next hour, we are going to be taking some of your questions, laying out all the storylines as we approach the final moments of the lead up to the early signing period, and we will conclude tonight with some predictions. So as you climb into the list, please, I see you in the chats. You're saying hello, hello, hello. Hit that thumbs up when you join on Warchant TV. It helps us find more Florida State fans. Michael, good evening to you. How's that running around treating you with under 24 hours to go?
My phone's on 65%. I've kept it charged pretty much most of the day. I've been on it all day long, certainly, and it's been fun. Certainly a lot of stuff we still have to finish up to get ready for tomorrow. But overall, ready. You're ready for ready to put a bow on this thing as far as high school, because no matter what happens today, guys, or tomorrow, there's still going to be a lot more left as far as portal. Whatever they didn't feel like they got, they're going to add in the portal. So, and that's why I've stressed constantly. Like, no, I'm not expecting a bad day. I'm actually thinking it'll be a fairly good day. But I think people need to understand that whatever you don't get, you're certainly going to address in the portal. So enjoy it. Also enjoy what the class you have, the guys you already have. I think those guys kind of get ignored, of guys that are, certainly going to sign tomorrow, that are, we've got the list already up on Warchant on the PRB of the times of when we're expecting. We might need to move the show to 7 a.m. from what I'm hearing, that there's going to be around 5 guys that are around 7 a.m. So,
Okay.
it's just embrace everything that you're going to have of these new Seminoles that are coming in here, and not just forget about, just because they're already in that, to just forget about, and then possibly potentially some really good additions, to go to the class. So I think that's important to, kind of pull the reins back and understand what you have coming in for the rest of the whole cycle.
I know this is primarily about high school ranks and the early signing period, but Michael, I'm going to start the show just by recapping a little bit of what's going on in the portal. We logged on last night after the news broke that Marvin Jones Jr. was finally coming to Florida State through the portal. They didn't get him in high school, but they got him just a couple of years later out of Georgia, which is great for Florida State, and especially that defensive front. Also, the quarterback situation is something that I'm sure it would be a nice shot in the arm before Wednesday if Florida State could get a quarterback commit from either DJU or Cam Ward. But just your sense of where things stand with the portal, and then we'll spend the rest of the night on the high school side of things.
Yeah, I think I haven't heard anything intel-wise that we've given a timeline, but I think one of them I could see coming off this week, just, ready to be done with it. And I don't know exactly the date, but I do think I would say that my gut feels that one of them would come off the board, quarterback. And I've heard they have a few guys in the portal that they, either have visited or they feel good about, that they feel like are coming down the pike, that they feel like they sit in a good spot with. So there's a lot more coming down. Obviously, we're all focused on the high school stuff, but I think Marvin was kind of the start, and I think you certainly will see some trickle out once we get past the high school, because then you can turn a majority of your attention to that, even the staff in general. So I do think some are coming down. I think if a quarterback, I'll be surprised if a quarterback doesn't pop sometime, during the week, but we'll see. I mean, like I said, that's not intel based. That's just kind of the feeling I get of the recruitments and the people I talk to around their recruitments.
So let's take a look at the signing times for tomorrow. Michael alluded to it. We've got a thread on the premium recruiting board at warchant.com. We'll tell you more about how to sign up if you're not a subscriber yet. This would be the 24-hour period to get on board. But as you can see there, there's a staggered list. You can see all kinds of times in terms of these are the signing ceremonies. But you see KJ Bolden there, 5-star plus KJ Bolden. I wonder if his name is going to come up tonight on the program.
I think it will.
1 p.m. there, Florida State's quarterback, Luke Cromenhawk at 11 a.m., tight end Landon Thomas, who is a special talent. I remember when Florida State, Michael, you went up there to break the news when he flipped from Georgia to Florida State. I believe he was the number 1 tight end and a 5-star at the moment of that
right.
flip.
Right.
Cam Davis also in the 1 p.m. hour. But some of those early signings include defensive lineman Jamori Flagg, wide receiver B.J. Gibson, defensive back Jamari Howard, Out of those guys in the morning, Michael, you can throw in legacy Camden Fryer as well, 3-star wide receiver. Out of those morning ceremonies, what do you think of those particular kids and what they're going to add to Florida State?
Yeah, and I would say the premise of to start this is that that's going to shift because I sent Matt some stuff that I got as far as intel of checking with kids that I think you're going to have like five on there that are going to be like 7 a.m. I think Charles Lester's one of those at
Mm.
7 a.m. So that will change. We're going to update that. I think Matt's going to update that eventually, so that will reflect today. But I think overall in the early ones, certainly the LJ McCray one at 10 a.m. is going to be one that people pay attention to, and then the 1 p.m. I think certainly the KJ Bowman's going to have people interested. And then at noon, I've heard Jeremiah Smith is going, so that will be a big hour for FSU as far as keeping tabs of how that shakes out. But I think those are some of the main times. I think the rest are just like I said. There's going to be four or five that I think are going to be 7 a.m. and so it'll get the kind of the ball rolling very early.
So, Michael, that's the other thing too. Is like you'll have signing ceremonies that might occur hours after the LOI is faxed in, and that's the thing
Yeah,
is what we're watching for in terms of confirmation tomorrow. For those of you who are brand new to the process, it's a wild one. It's only gotten more crazy in the last 3 to 5 years. But there are signing ceremonies, there are commitments, and then there's also that little thing that we all used to talk about, the fax machine. It's more modern now. But when the letter of intent is received, that's when the university, Michael, can finally acknowledge that these people exist. They've never been allowed to acknowledge that some of these players exist, really. But then what you'll
yeah.
see is Florida State football's account tomorrow release hype videos and welcome videos for players once those letters of intent make their way to Tallahassee. So that's what we're watching for in the morning, and that's going to start in the 7 a.m. hour.
Exactly. And that's kind of what's going to be rolling. We'll see a lot of several commits that have been committed for a while that you'll see pop in there earlier. And like I said, we're going to update that list shortly. I know Matt's traveling back to Texas right now, but when we get a chance, we'll update. And if he doesn't, I'll do it right after the show. But overall, there's going to be a lot of activity between that 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. hour as far as commitment signings rolling in.
Hector, thank you very much for your contribution to the program. He says, we'll be thankful for whoever commits and stays. No need to worry. Let these kids enjoy the process and respect their choices. Just vibe, folks. That is an incredibly adult way of looking at this. I say, Michael, I do this every year on signing day itself, where I say, good luck to all of you in the chat. There's a lot of shenanigans going on in the chat. I know
Yeah.
you put a message out on the PRB today, like everybody take a deep breath. This
Yeah.
is that wild season where maybe people pop in just to troll, people pop in for rumors and so forth. This is the silly 24-hour, less than 24-hour lead up to signing day. But as this day, we convened a couple days ago, Michael, on the Sunday Smash to talk about these things. Just kind of sum up where you think Florida State stands and the strength of this class in the last 48 hours as you've done some more mining for information.
Yeah, I think it's going to be strong. I mean, if things go the way I kind of sense they will, you're not going to get everybody that is major targets, but I think if things go the way I'm hearing, I think it'll be a good day for FSU because the main thing is keeping the majority of your class and maybe adding a boom from one or two guys or maybe three that you want to kind of take it to another level. But I think if they get what I think, at least what I'm hearing right now, then I think it'll be a good day for them, and I think people will be happy. It has a chance to be good, or it can be, if some surprises happen, it'll be pretty bad. So certain ways,
Yep.
based on what they have. So um, we'll get into that and we'll go there. But I think overall, right now, I feel pretty good about the strength of the different positions that they've gone after and addressed. It certainly DB, they really come hard after that. A lot of top guys that they've already got committed, and then certainly those guys sign. It might be, if all of them sign, it's going to be one of the best they've probably ever had. I think, and then there's certain other positions where you want to add a little bit more, and if they get it here, great. If they don't, they'll get in the portal. But that's kind of what I'm focused on is what guys outside of that realm of positions like D line, who are you going to add, or is it going to be portal focus? So that's kind of one of my headlines that I would watch just for the day is what you're adding at positions that aren't like we're committed there or guys are there. So I think that's what I'm kind of focused on.
More than 1,000 of you here watching us on the Walk-Ons Signing Day preview. Hit the thumbs up as you come in. We're going to do questions for Michael from the chat here in just a moment. Before, a little bit from our friends at Walk-Ons in Tallahassee and Walk-Ons throughout the Southeast. With scratch-made dishes and wall-to-wall TVs, dig into Walk-Ons mouth-watering menu items like po' boys, gumbo, and voodoo shrimp, plus fan favorites like juicy burgers and fresh salads. Walk-Ons for the win. You can find them in Tallahassee here locally at 3390 Capitol Circle Northeast. Outstanding food, outstanding surrounds at Walk-Ons. But I know a lot of you are listening throughout the Southeast. There's a Walk-Ons near you, so hit them up today. We appreciate their support. So we're going to head to the chat now for questions.
Okay.
And I know there's going to be, of course, a couple of those headliners, maybe 5 different ways of asking the same question. So the pressure's on Director Ben to give us the best version of a question about certain recruits. All right, there we go. Obvious first question. What's the latest on KJ Bolden? Big surprise, Michael.
Yeah, I mean that's not a shocker. Obviously, Auburn's coming hard, strong. We hear more about them as far as strong buzz, and it's legitimate. There is legitimate interest in there. We know that. They're still talking. I know Auburn, FSU, and even Georgia have all talked in the last hour or two with KJ as far as just going up to the final thing. I'll give my prediction later. We go to the predictions, but I think it's kind of in that mold where FSU still feels good, but there's also people that also feel good. Auburn feels like they could possibly pull it off, but it's not like a lockdown. It's very fluid. I even chatted with, a little bit with Chad Simmons today, and he's like, "Yeah, I can't even get." He's so fluid. It's like he wasn't ready, comfortable to put a prediction, for me. But we'll address that when we get to it. But overall, the feeling with FSU has been consistent. Even today, I checked with a number of different people, and that's how they feel about it.
It's an interesting one, Michael, because you were the one to ask him the question just a couple days ago. And you said, even though he told you, you already know I'm signing with Florida State, you said, I don't buy it yet.
Yeah, I don't, and you're gonna sweat it out. Orange Wave, yes, the visit went really well. I see your questions pop up there. We know No Girl doesn't like my voice apparently, from what I saw in the chat. But okay, my wife does, so that's what matters. But anyway, I think even when it was going from that, I felt like, okay, this isn't finished because I was looking for a set answer. That's why I asked that. I looking for a I'm shutting it down. I'm definitely going there. Body language stuff, and I felt like the body language was more like, yeah, I'm not totally done yet with this process. So I think I think that's kind of how I took it. Like,
Yeah.
okay, they're gonna have to stress this out. They're gonna have to keep pushing and make sure they line up and lock it down.
Got a question from IG. Your comments can't wipe up the old fashioned way. So Director Ben is doing the Lord's work for you if you're on
There you
Instagram
go.
Live. And welcome. That's a brand new wrinkle here on Warchant TV. Travis Rogers wants to know, why have we lost momentum? Did the coaches stop recruiting, hoping guys stick to FSU? Michael, do you accept the premise of that question, that Florida State's lost momentum?
No, they're recruiting as hard as they've ever recruited. I mean, they're very dialed in on these relationships. They've done they've never let up. This isn't a situation like where you've had in certain moments with the Jimbo Fisher era where recruiting at certain times wasn't as strong as the other times. Like they would go hard in the summer, but then during the season you wouldn't hear as much. You wouldn't hear as much buzz or push. But no, the staff has been phenomenal. I think. I think they've been very consistent of what they do, and I don't think that's changed.
Bobby Black wants to know what's up with Charles Lester. And that's a Facebook question. Now, Michael, it sounds like 7 a.m. We know what's up with Charles Lester
Yeah,
as of now,
yeah,
right?
he's supposed to sign at 7 a.m. from everything I've been told, and I don't think there's even a change, guys. I mean, you got to understand too. A lot of these guys, it's a big day for them as far as the signing, so they're going to hype it up. They're going to twist it up, throw some twists in there, make it exciting. But at the end of the day, I mean, I expect Charles Lester to sign with FSU. That's the points I've gotten. It's been very direct. He's not even on our prediction list because that's what I expect. I haven't heard anything that led to it. I don't even think there's any national things that are people are like this could happen or what. But you always be prepared just in case there's ultimate shocker. But overall, I feel good about Charles signing with FSU tomorrow.
Do you think that Charles would be a weapon for Florida State in the return game, Michael? Just looking at his skill set, it looks like that might be something that, beyond defensive back for FSU, might be able to contribute in that and special teams.
Yeah, I think special teams is where I'd see him the first. I think overall, if you ask my feeling of, you know, could he play on like, DB or receiver? I think coming in he'll be DB, but then as the career goes on, I could see him ending up at receiver. He's very natural and confident with it, and so if I was making a bold prediction, I would say, don't be surprised if he ends up at receiver, just because I know that's kind of his first love. That DB is a place that he really started to evolve, later in the high school career. But I think overall he's so natural at receiver that it would be an easy transition.
West in the Villages says, "Yo, Michael and Tom. So we're losing Blunt. Tell me we're keeping McCray, or getting McCray, excuse me, to make up for it. Speak it into existence. Can you do that, Michael?"
I can't speak in existence. I think that's one where, personally, I think in going and getting to know LJ throughout the process, he's been a very loyal guy. I know FSU is still working the phones hard. I just got off texting with a few guys that, they're still on him. They're expecting to talk to him multiple times. And I just think, like, when I go back to it of the loyalty of what he is, I think he sticks with Florida personally. I just think that vibe that he gave off with that. And then two, I think there's other schools like Auburn and Florida State that have certainly they got a lot to show product wise for FSU. Auburn with, I guess, excitement level because of what Hugh Freeze can do potentially. But I think, like I said, it's a kid that's big in loyalty, and you got to read the body language of how kids are, and that's for me. I could see that. I lean more towards Florida, just with him that sticking there. That's kind of the signs I see. We've heard a lot of buzz in the last 48 hours about Florida, and how comfortable they feel like he would get it. He would stick with them. So that's kind of where I'm sitting. Not to give away too much with the predictions, but that's kind of where I'm at least as of whatever time it is right now, 6 something. So there you go.
Yeah, things are fluid. We understand that. We'll timestamp this to make sure too. Even because I know there's going to be a predictions video on the channel from our discussion. I'll make sure it's timestamped so we're protected there. Let's see. Ric Flair weighing in. There'll be shenanigans. Yeah, well, it's signing day. That's right. That
Yeah,
work against FSU. Well,
yeah,
if we're talking about the playoff committee, Ric Flair, then I say woo to you. But yeah. Michael, your comment on that?
Uh, not really comment on that, but I saw a message on there about Vitus saying that he saw that Lester is signing on Saturday. That's his ceremony. His ceremony was on Saturday. We expect the letter of intent to be signed tomorrow on signing day. Charles even told me that when I saw him. So um, how that works, I don't know as far as what they reveal, but he is planning to sign on tomorrow
Jake
early.
Cook says, "Is not having a quarterback going to hurt us?" And he's talking about portal, of course,
Yeah,
between Cam Ward and DJU. Do you think that's a negative for creating some buzz tomorrow, Michael, if they don't?
I think it's a positive. I don't think it's a negative or positive. I think it's a positive that I think most recruits feel like they're going to get one of DJ or Ward. Um, I think they know what the situation is. Guys that are seriously considering FSU, so I don't think it's really a negative. Ohio State doesn't have a quarterback either. Miami doesn't have a quarterback either. So none of these teams have quarterbacks that are looking at receivers and hoping to surprise some people. So keep that in mind. I don't think it's a negative or positive as long as they know um, that there is a plan to have one. I think they know that the school's going to get a good quarterback, and they're not really stressing about it.
Question from Instagram from House of Chaos: How likely is it that Amari Williams signs with FSU tomorrow? I think that's all about will he sign, period. Because if he's putting pen to paper, it would be Florida State, right, Michael?
Yeah, I would think the strong possibility that it would be FSU, but it's all about really if he's going to do it. House, I mean, really, we keep checking on that. Constantly, almost every other hour, it feels like that if he's going to do it, and I think he might wait and decide. Kind of I think he already knows, but he might want to wait and just so he's not berated by people because I think, as you said, Florida State's the last visit. You would think they sit in a good spot, so you don't want to tip off too much. And then the moment you say, "Yeah, I'm signing tomorrow," then your phone blows up and a million schools are hitting you up, to try to get you to influence you to not sign. So I think if he is, I think quiet is probably good. As far as what you want, but certainly something I'm going to be monitoring, all day tomorrow. See if he does it. He's out there from Benjamin High School, which is where Jordan Travis played. So the Benjamin School. So certainly a guy that I'm going to keep an eye on and I keep checking on, and I'll certainly keep up with you guys just to let you know anything going on.
Two questions that are kind of the same. If Florida State was to make some noise, Mark on the mic and Chris Thompson both want to know basically best flip opportunity for Florida State. Who could they grab between those high profile guys that they are very interested in?
I would say Jeremiah Smith. That would be my pick. The number one player in the country. That will be the one that I feel like there's the best chance to flip. I've already covered LJ, so I've had those feelings there. Not going to reveal all of the predictions. We'll do that later, but
Yeah.
I do think Jeremiah is the best one.
Gramps 21. Hello, Gramps. Hope you're taking some Bear aspirin tonight. With Georgia losing their quarterback to Nebraska, which how about that? Rayola to
Mm.
Nebraska. Wow.
Yeah,
Very cool.
I when I first saw that, I'm like, what? And then I did research and saw that his dad was a legacy there. So I was like,
Right.
okay, that makes a little more sense because Nebraska isn't exactly tearing it up on the product on the field. So that
No.
was kind of interesting. But then once I did a small little checking, I was like, okay, that makes a little more sense.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. That's,
It is.
I grew up in Nebraska kicking butt. They didn't run a pro style offense or anything close to what Matt Rule's running, but that's a big win for them. So related to that, Michael Gramps wants to know any concerns, 11th hour concerns with Luke Kromenhawk?
Oh no, no, no. Luke's ready to sign. It's good to go. I think he's at 11 a.m. So no, it's good to go. I know when you see their top quarterback leave, everyone gets worried. But I know even Georgia reached out to him, put that in one of my nuggets one night that Georgia, Penn State, and some schools tried to reach and said, hey, what do you think? Give us another shot. And he was like, I think his tweet said it all. Thanks, but no thanks. I think Luke is very locked into what FSU is doing. He understands and he wants to be a part of it.
Marlon Reed. Mike, which position group do you think the staff should have gone harder on in terms of, let's keep it to high school recruiting because we know they're pretty good at this portal thing. But if you're just looking at they could have done better at X position group, what would it be?
Well, I mean, now based on how we feel about the blunt news, I mean, you figure you wish they would have had more options at defensive line. I think that's a place that they could have done better. I think that was lacking, and certainly an area that I feel it definitely needs to be better. And then 2025, I feel really good about this position because I think they're going to land some really good prospects. They already have one in four-star linebacker Ethan Pritchard, but linebacker is really a place like you got Jaden Parrish, but outside of that, you don't have really a lot to support it, and you're losing, you know, all three guys that are playing, that it's started last year. So that's a position. Those two positions, I think they could have done a lot better with. In my opinion, I would have pushed more of getting more options to get into the fold.
For insights like this, make sure you head over to warchant.com. This is but a morsel of the whole process. Everybody knows that recruiting is fluid, and there'll be updates into the night tonight, into first thing in the morning on Wednesday. And if you want to be a part of the warchant.com community, we have a signing day special for you. This is for new subscribers only, but you can access warchant.com unlimited, all the scoop, premium recruiting board, team coverage, transfer portal, you name it, we got it. $54.99 for 1 year. That's half off a membership to warchant.com. You'll want to head. We've got several forums where fans get together. You will want to head directly to, it's like do not pass go. You go straight to the premium recruiting board that's headed up by Michael Langston and Matt Lasser. That's where all our coverage will be. So if you don't mind, give us a shot to earn your business. You will not be disappointed with what we do at warchant.com because, Michael, we'll be doing predictions in about 15 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
But that is just, again, that's like the appetizer course. Things can happen into the night. You've
Yes.
seen some wild things happen on the eve of National Signing Day, going back to when it was in February.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to rate right now, I'll ask you a question personally because I'm always curious about these things. How many things are in flux right now? Like on the scale of 0 to this is the craziest I've ever seen it, Tom. How do you feel about Florida State's class right now and how many things are up in the air?
I mean, there's not much. There's not a lot up in the air. I think most of them. I think they feel pretty consistent of, what they're going to get. But I mean, there's two or three, things. They're waiting on, maybe four at the most. But overall, I think they have a pretty good strong feeling of what's expected. And communication is also a thing that you see all the time. It's not just about the guys we talk about with KJ Bolden, dealing with Auburn and Georgia and pushing there. It's the guys that are for sure going. You want to make sure everything's all the ducks in a row, all the T's are crossed and dots are dotted, I's are dotted. And so I think overall, I think they're pretty comfortable with what they're likely going to get, going into tomorrow. And I think there's other guys that maybe they don't sit as good with, but I think they're going to keep pushing and see what happens. And like I said, I tell people this all the time with recruiting. It's very fluid with from the hour to the different hours. It's very fluid. I can't explain that enough. I've dealt with it for 23 years. I've seen it consistently. It's fluid as far as what can connect the attention of a recruit in the final few hours. Yeah, so you always have to pay attention to any of small intel. It's not a matter how it's big or small. It's like you got to connect the dots and see if there's something either could happen good or could happen bad. It's just there's always a fluidness to this stuff. It's not just a cliche when I say that or mention that. It does happen as far as until that final moment when they sign. And we've seen that consistently with some of these kids that announce on whatever network they're doing it on. You see something at the last minute that maybe changed in an hour or two, or sometimes it's a sleep on it a night or two, going into the following morning. So it's something that certainly we take seriously at every intel we hear, whether it's Matt or me. And certainly I know how this works. But overall, I think, Tom, I think they're pretty comfortable with what they're going to have going into tomorrow.
Just about 1,500 of you watching right now on Walk-On's Signing Day Preview. I saw a comment/question wiped up a moment ago from a gentleman named Mark, who was wondering if there are going to be any surprises, anything out of left field for tomorrow. Like, Michael, if you look at it in the big picture, a reclassification for Amari Williams and potentially landing that
Yeah,
young man to be as part of your 2024 class is a surprise.
right.
But is there anything else like that, or anything else that you could see that tomorrow maybe somebody emerges out of nowhere? I remember A.Z. Thomas was kind of a surprise a
Yeah,
couple of years ago, and
yeah.
look how good that turned out. Anything like that that perhaps could turn up?
Nothing I've heard from the pipeline or anything like that of outside of Amari. I think Amari's been the main guy. I think most of them we've covered, but you always have to you know, put aside that there could be a guy that maybe wasn't as high on the board, that maybe at a position that they didn't land, that they go after at last minute or last night. I remember, one story, it was Jalen Lucas kid. That's Ja'Kai Douglas's brother. Ended up at Indiana. He was actually, they were close to getting him to flip to FSU because they found out they had a spot late, and then they went after him. So a lot of these things, the surprises usually you don't know until the day of. Now there's occasionally where you get privy to the information of, hey, this is likely going to happen, but I think overall with these surprises outside of the ones I've already covered on the PRB consistently, I'm not expecting it, but I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there that I've seen this happen before where last minute you could see FSU signing somebody that really wasn't, he might have visited FSU, but maybe they weren't as high on the radar, and they were able to pull it in before they actually signed with the team most expected them to.
So, Michael, you'll have to help me here. Bravo wants to know, any chance we flip Coy or we moved on from him? To whom is Bravo referring? Do you know
He's
Coy?
talking about Coy Parrish. He's
Oh, yeah. Yep.
he's likely going to Ohio State. I don't think that's likely to happen, Bravo, but he didn't visit. He canceled his visit to go into FSU after he visited Ohio State. So I think the tea leaves are kind of there that it's likely going to be Ohio State that gets a flip. Probably, I think he's committed to Minnesota. But that's the guy he's referring to over there in I think he's in Ohio. I'm not sure.
So it's apropos that we get this question from Jim today in the
Okay.
chat because Jared Verse declares for the NFL draft, says he's going to skip the Orange Bowl, and what a career that Jared Verse had.
Mm,
It's such a shame that he didn't get to play in the Invitational, Michael, because according to Pro Football Focus, he had 18 pressures in the last 2 games of his career at
right.
Florida State. That's an absurd amount. He had 60 for the year, 18, but he came out of Albany. We all know the story. Tennessee, Florida State. Florida State closes the deal. Jermaine Johnson helps, vouch for Florida State and what's going on here. Well, there's an FCS sack leader out of Albany. He's a grad transfer named Anton J. We're going to go with J.
Okay.
Does Florida State have any preliminary interest on this young man, Michael? He just entered in the last 24 hours. Has that made the radar at all on your end?
Not yet, but Jim, I will check on that name. Got it etched in my brain. Once I see a name, it's in target lock. So I will definitely ask about that name and see what I can find out. Certainly, the first Albany one did pretty good for FSU, and I think that's too. Like people think like FSU when they go after a guy, it needs to be from a big name school like Georgia, but I mean, really, it's the talent and the fit to what they're doing. And so with Jared, it was a little easier because they saw him against Syracuse and they could scout film and get somebody that's a common opponent. But I will check on that name. But overall, I haven't not heard anything at this point with him.
Watching Walk On Signing Day preview here on Warchant TV. Bravo again wants to know this particular question. Any player you think we push hard for after signing period till February? And most everybody signs in December these days, Michael, but
Yeah.
anybody like that?
It kind of falls back to the Murray one if he didn't sign, tomorrow, which we'll see. But we'll see. I don't know any guy that for sure they would. That's something I'll ask around once we wrap up tomorrow, and then I can kind of gauge what they do as far as there being a high school player that maybe signed in February. There's not many. I mean, there's usually not many, but there's
Mm-hmm.
always some that could be a possibility. So I will definitely check on that, Bravo, but I probably won't know more until that'll be probably something I put up the night of signing day. If I hear somebody that I think FSU go after, I need to do some checking to see because as much as it sounds like an easy question, but it's something that I think they're focused on these guys that are getting tomorrow. So I'm
Yep.
going to need to kind of see what their next steps are, and then can go from there. And then maybe I'll have something either that day or maybe a few days after that. Once I take care of the missus shopping because that's when I'll do my shopping for Thursday. So I will definitely check on that.
Christopher says if these kids want to be developed, come to FSU. Simple as that. They seem to respond to that kind of notion a little bit more consistently, Michael, out of the
Yeah.
portal. Kids are like lining up to come to Florida State, lining up to enter the portal. Before we get to that JoJo question, hang on. I'm going to cut in with a question from Keith
Okay.
because this is a prediction that we're allowed to go early with.
Okay.
If you had to pick between Cam Ward and DJ in the portal, who do you think Florida State lands?
I think it's more likely, based on the buzz so far currently, is Cam for me. Cam Ward. I think DJ look. I'm not even sure there's like an offer to say that DJ could come in yet. I do feel there is with Cam. So that's why I say Cam because I know how the visit went. I know I was told like at the very least FSU's very very much in it, and then another source said they feel good about FSU's position after that visit. So really, if I was going to pick one, I would pick him at this point. Now, could that change? Sure, I could have a change of mind as far as how I feel, but as of tonight on Tuesday night, yeah, that's kind of where I sit.
I think everybody understands, even though they will never like some people will never. I think everybody gets it, Michael. These things are moving targets. In terms of JoJo Trader, I saw that question come up. Is that a trader as much as anybody can be a locked anywhere?
Yeah, I think he's going to stay home. I expect him to sign with Miami tomorrow. I haven't heard any other receiver, and FSU's been very consistent that they're locked in on Jeremiah. That's the guy. It's like him or bust. It's like that's the guy we get, or they're they'll take an extra guy if they need to from the portal. I do think they're going to add a portal receiver. Just throwing it out there, Evan Stewart just entered from Texas A&M. That's a really good one. I think that's one that FSU would be interested and intrigued by. So that's a name to keep in mind. I know Matt's going to add him to the list and all that stuff, but I think they definitely will hit a transfer portal receiver. I think that's a goal, whether they get Jeremiah or not. Now maybe they add two if they need to, but I don't think there's other guys like JoJo Trader if they don't get Jeremiah. I think they're kind of locked in on Jeremiah. That's the focus.
It's just about that time to get to some of the predictions and final thoughts as we preview a full day coming up on Warchant TV. We'll begin early. Gator Kirk, I can submit that request to Aslan. Aslan is the master of the soundboard. I've got a couple of buttons, but he's got the board. He wants to know if we can get, for the people listening on the podcast, the Irish Ophel, Don Julio. Ooh, anytime Florida State lands a commit. I don't know if, Michael, have you seen that video of him slamming the Don Julio shot?
I have not seen that yet.
Michael, it's the size of a tall boy. It's the largest shot
Wow.
of tequila you've ever seen. And then he lets out with a noise that Gator Kirk would like to be a part of tomorrow's proceedings. We'll forward that to the other department with Aslan. But tomorrow's program scheduled for right now to start at 8 a.m. here on Warchant TV. Maybe it comes a little bit earlier. We will keep you posted on that on the boards. And you can always just subscribe to the channel and hit the bell, because you know what happens when you hit the bell? You're alerted every time we go live. So there it is. Your phone will just pop up as you're making yourself some breakfast.
Boom.
And there we are here on Warchant TV. It's amazing technology. From Instagram, Scott wants to know, is Jaquavius Marks, Mississippi State running back, likely to come to FSU? I'm assuming that is another transfer portal entry.
Yeah, running back. They previously recruited. Dave Johnson has a previous relationship with him there. I've heard there's the expectation is he visits on January 3rd weekend to FSU. I've heard a lot of some buzz early about Southern Cal with him. Certainly, we can understand that what they do pretty well with running backs, but I think as long as he takes that visit, certainly I think there's a strong shot they could get him based on the previous relationship. But Southern Cal's a team that I think is probably the biggest competition there. So we'll see what happens if he does follow through with that visit.
Michael, has recruiting / portal work gotten more national as NILs entered this thing? Because I feel like, you hear things like it's a Florida State Ohio State battle, it's a Florida State USC battle. It used to be kind of regional, as maybe conferences expanding that way. Has it just become more of a national thing to you rather than these regions, go to these schools only?
For the most part, it has. You have occasionally the in-state battles, but for the most part, I mean, it's so national because you have an NIL focus on what you have to deal with. You have a focus on just what your product is, where you're going, what the program looks like, and from a national side, FSU might be better than some other schools that are maybe that the recruits closer to as far as location. So yeah, it's become more of a national brand with both the portal and the NIL. It's made it my job a lot more difficult for sure. Just the stuff you have to track is consistently over and over. It varies, but it just gives you more where you have to work. And then now the day of social media, where everything's posted on social media now, where the feelings of a recruit is posted, and people are trying to read what the feelings mean or what a tweet means or emoji means. It's like it's made it a lot more difficult of stuff that you have to check on.
We will be back with predictions after these messages. This one singular message from Drew Brees. Interesting.
Nice.
Game day at Walk-Ons is just different, and it starts with the way our teammates prep each dish from our scratch menu. No shortcuts. We are hand-cutting every single mozzarella log straight from the block, hand-peeling, stuffing, and bacon wrapping each voodoo shrimp, hand-carving ribeyes for our steaks and po' boys, and hand-slicing, then tossing our boneless wings and our house-made sauces. With wall-to-wall TVs and food like this, why would you want to watch anywhere else? That's game day, the Walk-Ons way.
It's a really good commercial. All that food looks delicious. Hope
good. It's good.
everybody.
I've been there. It's really, really good.
There we go. Warchant TV. Let's see. The latest transfer portal tracker. That's a good point, Director Ben. So you can go to the transfer portal tracker on warchant.com. We already promo what it costs. It's actually on the screen underneath Michael. New members.
Yep.
$54.99 for 1 year. So we're going to go through a list of players. I've got Matt Lasser, who's on the road. He's going to be entrenched tomorrow for the entire day, but he's getting to HQ in Dallas. We got Warchant HQ all over the country. But he's got Debo White, Amari Williams, LJ McCray, KJ Bolden, Jeremiah Smith. Those are the names that he's going to predict. Michael, are there any additions beyond those names that you'd like to venture a log of a prediction for, or does that sound like a good core five that we'll go with tonight?
That's mainly core five. We can throw Zay Mincy in there as well. I'll talk about a little bit about him, but outside of that, I think those are the main ones that I think most of us are focused on. Obviously, with the Amari one, we're kind of projecting if he does do it, that's what we think will happen. So keep that in mind, guys. We don't know for sure that he's doing. He has not said it or announced it or indicated that he's doing anything on December. He was very quiet about that when we asked him about that in the interview after his post visit. So that's something I'm still monitoring, but just keep that in mind. But yeah, those are the main schools or main players that we're going to focus on.
Okay, so here it is. Going to reset it right now. These are the predictions as of 6:43 p.m. Eastern, the Tuesday before early signing day. There's going to be another run of these tonight, late hours, wee hours at warchant.com, the premium recruiting board. Information is fluid, folks, but as we sit here just about 6:45 on the East Coast on Tuesday on Walk-On's signing day preview, we're going to go down the line. So Debo White, Denaz White, the first prediction, the order of operations is going to be Matt, followed by Michael anchoring the prediction. So here is Matt Lasserre's prediction for Mr. White.
Denaz White is another one I'm going to go with FSU for. He just took his official visit. I don't believe he's taken any other visits since then, and when the dead period started to signing day. I really like FSU's spot here. I've talked to him multiple times when he came for camp in the summer. He always seems to like it. I think he gets along really well with the staff, and I think that's a very underrated pickup for FSU. He's a big dude, man, real big dude, and I think he'll be a great young addition to this offensive line if he does sign with Florida State like I expect him to.
All right, Michael, it's a big defensive line get if Florida State could do it. Do you think Florida State lands Debo White?
Yeah, Debo White is a phenomenal defensive tackle. They've been very high on. Massive kid, eats up a lot of space, great run stopper, a guy that does pretty well even on pass. And they've had him on campus like 3 or 4 times. As Matt pointed out, he hasn't really visited anywhere else. Took an official to FSU. They were the last team to get him on campus, as far as my knowledge. I like FSU to win that battle. That FSU lands a commitment from Debo White. I feel good about their position there, and that's kind of where I sit at 6:43. So that's kind of my feelings on White.
Okay, now we've talked about this. This is 2 parts because Amari Williams is reclassified. Wow, what an 11th hour thing. Reclassifies, really good player. He interviewed this week after his visit to Florida State. That is a frame that looks like it plays at the Power 5 level from Amari Williams. Large kid, defensive lineman, but we don't know for sure if he's going to sign or take it all the way to February. It's a good sign for FSU if he says Penn's going to meet paper tomorrow.
Right.
Let's get Matt Lasserre's prediction.
Now for Amari Williams, I feel like this is a no-brainer here. I think he's going to go with FSU if he does sign. We don't know for sure yet if he is signing. At least that's what he told us when he finished up his visit on Sunday. But he's also only taken that official visit to FSU and took it the second he reclassified. That feels very FSU heavy momentum, and he seemed to love the visit. He really seemed to get along well with the staff. He couldn't keep a smile off his face when Michael interviewed him. Just seems really good spot there for FSU.
He was smiling the whole time, wasn't he, Michael?
He was happy. He was happy. Even when we saw him, when he arrived, he was happy. You could see, and he, as he said, he was just kind of speechless, blown away, and all that stuff. I think really just depends on, if, he does it tomorrow. I think if he does it tomorrow, I expect FSU, barring something surprising that I didn't see out of left field. I think the momentum is certainly there for FSU, but his dad did play at Kentucky, Mo Williams. So I remember when Mo played. I was a long time. I was a young kid, but that's a possibility that another team to consider. But I think the main thing to focus is the minimum is if he does it tomorrow. And I think if he does, I think it's probably a good sign for FSU. And I think it's a good sign that all of a sudden it was reclassifying and you're taking this official visit to FSU this quickly. That's usually stuff, the tea leaves that you read that, sounds good for the team that they're visiting. So I'm gonna go with FSU as long as he does it tomorrow.
I got to tell you, Michael, you know it better than anybody. You got to let a kid get off campus to let everything wear off, and then they can think more clearly. He looked like he was ready to sign on the spot this weekend. He looked extremely pleased with what he saw and heard, I should say, from Florida State. All right, next up would be a flip candidate. Next up would be a giant flip candidate at that. Could the Florida Gators recruiting class continue to crumble? Maybe they lose their quarterback at the 11th hour. Obviously, they're not winning on the field. They're not at bowl prep. These kids couldn't have come in for a final official visit in December to go see practice because they're not allowed to practice. They didn't qualify for a bowl in Gainesville. So could all of those things stack up for LJ McCray to say, all right, Tallahassee, you are home for me? Let's hear from Matt.
Now for one of the bigger ones, LJ McCray. You guys are going to get mad at me for this one. I will say I don't think he's going to sign with Florida, but I also don't think he's going to sign with FSU. It just seems, I don't really like the feel I've had, or at least with the family and the staff, or at least what I've seen. It just doesn't seem like it's all there to me, and it feels like Florida State has kind of lost momentum, especially when he took that visit to Auburn, and that is my prediction, is Auburn. I think this last-second push is going to work out well for Hugh Freeze. He's done a few flips already so far with five-star Cam Coleman a few weeks ago. I just feel like LJ, it just feels Auburn to me. It's a gut feeling, but at least it's not Florida.
All right. At least it's not Florida. Michael, your thoughts earlier in this program were the momentum for Florida is actually kind of sticking around. So what say you?
Yeah, I go back to his recruitment is just getting to know him and being and knowing people around him and he told me this when he made his decision that, he's a very loyal guy, even though Florida's lost some coaches and yes, I think that Napier's probably going to get fired next year with that schedule they have. I do think I still think it's going to be Florida just because of their loyalty and just the things I've heard behind the scenes of. I agree with Matt. It's not. I don't think it'll be FSU, but I mean that was one I mentioned that in the late hours are going to keep still working. I've heard the communication's still high with FSU, so I do think the communication's there, the product is there, the development is there. But when you're dealing with kids that are, there's some kids that are spontaneous, and then there's some kids that are loyal, and he just fits that to me that loyal guy that I lean more towards him sticking with Florida. So that's kind of where I'm at. Where I think LJ McCray will probably stick with Florida.
All right. Neither of you have him going to Florida State, but you never know. You never know. We'll see what those predictions look like later tonight. Now, 5-star plus safety KJ Bolden. He said, I mean, man, you already know where I'm signing. I'm going to Florida State. I made my mind up. Absolutely. Then in the last 24 hours, Michael, even I'm catching Auburn buzz left and right here. Yep. And then somebody who's connected to the program and they're a funny person texted me 20 minutes ago. And it was that there's Georgia buzz now. And he says, good. This is actually good news to me because it sounds like he's effing with everybody again. So so there's just one person's perspective behind the scenes. But KJ Bolden's been committed to Florida State for some time. Can they close the deal this time with one of the top defensive backs in the recruiting class? Matt Lasserre's prediction. Go ahead.
Does he stick KJ Bolden? Short answer, I think yes. Now, some of you probably will get worried from my Auburn prediction to LJ McCray and that tweet that KJ put out after his OV to Florida State, tweeting at LJ, looked like it was recruiting him. You're going to think, oh, well, maybe now that meant Auburn if they're trying to link up in Auburn. No, I don't think so. I think that was a stretch to try to commit him to get him to commit to Florida State or flip to Florida State. I think KJ sticks. Was that interview with him on Sunday after his OV convincing? Not at all. Not at all. And I understand everyone getting worried after that because he said, I can't really speak on that right now after saying he would, but he did say he wasn't visiting Auburn. So it's, I understand why everyone was kind of up in the air, like, I don't like that, but I think he does stick. If you've noticed throughout his recruitment, when he takes other visits, he always likes it. But it always seems like when he comes to Florida State, he gets a different feel. And it's always like, oh, he goes to Georgia, and now he's coming to FSU, and wow, this feels different. I feel more at home. I feel better here. I like it so much better. It's almost like every single time he comes back to Florida State, it's to confirm his decision, in my opinion. And that's why I think he sticks on signing day.
Michael, this is a vicious football player. I love me some KJ Bolden. You look at his highlight reel. There are dudes who really lean into the physical part of the game of football. This is an enforcer. God, I would like the answer to be yes this time tomorrow. We said, good. All this nonsense is over with. What say you on KJ Bolden?
Oh man, it's a whirlwind. I said this too, that KJ I think enjoys the process too. I think he enjoys the pursuit. I think he likes that. I think that's why we've heard, for most of it was Auburn, and then all of a sudden Georgia with some, late bloods. And I think I agree with your friend, Tom. I think that's actually a good sign because it tells you it's a little bit all over the place. I think with this recruitment, you have to go back to what place that you feel the most comfortable when you see the body language and different things the way he acts compared to places like Auburn where he likes Hugh Freeze a lot. He really likes him. He certainly loves Kirby Smart, and there's a lot of buzz about teams in the SEC, and they're great and all, but at the end of the day, I still the intel suggests to me that I think KJ is going to stick with Florida State. That's my feeling as of right now. I feel as good as you can feel at 6:45 or whatever time it is. I
Yep.
still think it's one where you'll have to stress it out and all that stuff. But the intel suggests to me that it's still. I feel like I feel like FSU will win out, and like I said, I think people are going to stress, until pen meets paper, and you're going to hear all kinds of stuff. Sure, you probably hear at 3 a.m. that Auburn's like a team that he feels good about, but I just feel like I go back to the things of the reasons why he picked FSU, and that product is still there. The product is still phenomenal. The product of what they do with their DBs is phenomenal. What they do with their safeties, corners, all those guys. That's one of the big reasons why he committed to them. And I think all those other schools did a great job. But I think in the end, I think it's going to be close. Certainly going to be a sweat fest. But I think he ends sticks with FSU.
It would be great news. Again, that's as of I'm protecting. That's of 6:54 on Tuesday night. We'll see what happens between then and now. We sign on tomorrow for a full day of coverage here on Warchant TV. There is one more name. There's one more name, and this would be what a guy to get. Oh my gosh, what it would do for this offense for Florida State to land Jeremiah Smith. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. People like Reese Davis and other ESPN people lie to you and say that they don't know the college football playoff rankings before the show starts. We know that that's fake. It's been proven. I have not watched Matt Lasser's prediction, but I do know it takes 90 seconds of him breaking down Jeremiah Smith. So I want to feel the hemming and the hawing, and I want to see where he comes out on this. Go ahead, Director Ben.
Now for the biggest one that we have on this list, who's not committed to Florida State, is Jeremiah Smith, number one wide receiver in the class, number one player for the On3 industry rankings in the 2024 class. I think Florida State's going to do it. I think Florida State will flip Jeremiah Smith and send shockwaves throughout the college football world of recruiting and just college football in general. And we're back. We're here. We're keeping these kids in state. But in general, why I just think Florida State's had all the momentum for a while now. Coming off since July, when I put him on Flip Watch after Elite Camp, when he called Mike Norvell the best coach of college football. You don't say that if you're not at least thinking about Florida State, at the very least. Maybe the best coach of college football could actually beat Michigan. We'll never know. But I think there's too much here. Last he saw Brian Hartline was at a state championship game a few weeks ago, which was right before, like a day before his OV to Florida State, just down the road from where the state championship was, which is kind of us getting the last lap. That gives us the last momentum. That we've heard that visit went really well, knocked it out of the park. He didn't talk to us afterwards, but this is just going off stuff we've heard. And it's always gone well with Jeremiah Smith. Every single time he comes, it goes well. And he's been here a lot, probably more than anywhere else the last few weeks, and he's seen him play more. Like, he was visiting Florida for the Florida State game. He saw them play in Orlando for the LSU game. I just think it's so good. I think we're going to get him, or I think Florida State's going to get him. It's going to send shockwaves.
Well, it would send shockwaves. Jeremiah has been effusive, Michael, in praise. But we've heard that before from other players that maybe didn't choose Florida State on signing day. This would be a big moment. So what say you on Jeremiah Smith for tomorrow?
It's the big one, ain't it? It'd be funny if we just ended the stream right now and just like, we'll check back with you later, guys, at 11. I mean, yeah, because people would be, but anyway.
I've got a walk-ons commercial I could play for 15 seconds. No, but please.
We're not going to do that to you guys. Yeah, this is a tricky one because the Ohio State, confidence is pretty strong. It stayed consistent. It hasn't wavered. I check with different people when it regards to people I feel like would know, and they certainly feel like they're going to get him. I do feel it's really close. I do feel it's a lot closer than a lot of people think it is. Like, and a lot of people are going to think, like, with me saying that I'm going to pick Ohio State. I'm not. I'm actually going to pick Florida State based on just the feeling. Now, I'm going against the grain. I'm going against something that I don't usually do with somebody, sources that feel so strongly on one side. But I just feel I do agree with some of Matt's points that there is momentum there. I think there's a momentum of just not only just how he feels about Norvell, but also how he feels about Dugans, how much they just the connection to Florida State's personal, and I always go back to too. He's like he didn't visit Michigan. I know I get it. The game was at Michigan, but just he didn't feel like he went to Ohio State that much. And calling Keon Coleman the best receiver in college football, calling Mike Norvell the best coach. Now, I'm not saying it's a guarantee or a given. I just think like based on what I have, I'm kind of going against the grain of my Ohio State sources that I feel in a close battle. I think it's at this time. Time is it, Tom?
6:58 p.m.
Okay,
Eastern.
almost 7 o'clock. That's kind of where I sit. That I feel like I think it's a little more likely that FSU pulls it off.
Well, you know that they're scared in general up there when Brian Hartline is mean tweeting Keon Coleman accomplishments in the last 6 weeks. I mean, like that's his primary recruiter. That dude is liking tweets that downplay how good of a player Keon Coleman is. That's how you know legitimately Florida State has scared Ohio State. We'll see if they finish the job. And
Yep.
there's plenty.
And that's the thing, guys. We can make all these picks right now, but there's still you got to finish a job and you got to go into the next morning. We know Jeremiah's at noon, so it's a fluid situation that we got to keep checking to make sure the information, the intel, still feels the same way. But yeah, that's kind of where I feel. And I'll be honest, guys, I was already locked in last night because I was thinking outside, taking the trash out, thinking like I'm gonna pick Ohio State for Jeremiah Smith tomorrow. And then as I got a little more intel, it's just I couldn't do it just based on the intel I have currently right now. But I mean that's kind of where I was to kind of let you know my selection process. But as I said, this thing's fluid, and we'll see if anything shifts or goes during the night or even into the morning. We'll see. But that's where I'm at right now.
The irony is not lost on me, everybody who's watching right now on Warchant TV, that we're talking about players who will most certainly not be walk-ons at Florida State, but they're going to be scholarship players. But it is sponsored by the Signing Day Preview Show, Walk-On Sports Bistro with scratch-made dishes and wall-to-wall TVs. Dig into Walk-On's mouth-watering menu items like po' boys, gumbo, voodoo shrimp, plus fan favorites like juicy burgers and fresh salads. They also have wings these days as well. Walk-ons for the win. Tomorrow on Warchant TV, we will begin bright and early on the channel with Signing Day Live, once again presented by our friends at Walk-On's Sports Bistro. The scheduled start time is 8 a.m. I can tell already that Michael is going to lobby for an earlier start time. We will see what we can do about that here on Warchant TV. It's a full day. It's going to be wall-to-wall, all of the elements. Michael will be the lead analyst. Aslan Hajavandi will be the lead host. Everybody's going to pop in from time to time to weigh in. We'll have live commitment ceremonies. If we can stream them and we can do so legally, we're going to grab them. That's what we do for you here on Warchant TV. So make sure to subscribe to the channel. It's absolutely free. Like this video. It helps us find more Florida State fans. Gets the word out about what we're doing at Warchant TV. It's going to be a packed night. Remember, those subscribers to warchant.com, your night's not over because Michael's night is not over. You're going to head over to warchant.com, premium recruiting board. Maybe middle of the night, you might want to check it as well. There are going to be updates and predictions on the website. It's going to be a long, full day. Joseph says, you know what time people are signing? We're going to have some updates to that list, Joseph. There are going to be some updates to that list in the near future.
Right.
Warchant.com. Go to the premium recruiting board. I'd say in about 15 minutes, you're going to see an even more updated list of what's going on.
Right.
Letters of intent will start arriving, Michael, as soon as the 7 a.m. hour for Florida State. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I think 4 or 5. There could be 6. Might be more. That a lot of kids want to get it out of the way and done. So yeah, I think there's going to be there'll be some adjust of that time based on stuff I got throughout the year that I tracked down as far as these times. But yes, that will be updated. I will definitely make sure we're putting it on there, and hopefully, like I said, like I'm hopeful that it goes the way what we're hearing it trending. But either way, whether they land the guys or they don't, we'll adjust and we'll pivot at whatever place they need to address certain positions in the portal. This is just the first part of it. As far as that stuff. We'll knock it out and we'll get to it. And as far as what you're wanting to know about the portal, we'll cover that. So there's going to be a lot to cover. It isn't over tomorrow. It's just the one part of it.
Which is why you want to sign up at warchant.com. There's the price underneath Michael. He is Michael Langston, the senior recruiting analyst for warchant.com. For Michael and Matt Lasserre, one of our Swiss Army knives at Warchant, heavy into the recruiting coverage these days. Yep. Director Ben behind the scenes. Thank you very much, Director, for doing what you do. For everybody in the chat, thank you for participating in the chat tonight. Keeping the questions rolling. I'm sorry, we do have to sign off for now, though. We'll be back bright and early tomorrow morning. Head to warchant.com for more information. This has been Walk-On Signing Day Preview on Warchant TV. Hit that like button on the way out, and we will talk to you on the channel tomorrow.